He's very emotive, so if you hear a very strange purr, it's him. Anyway, hello friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Kelliot. Elliot is in Sri Lanka right now at a very fun wedding, but worry not. I am here with my dear friend Brian Reganti, who I have worked with for years. Woo! And you are one of the first freelancers that I had started to become familiar with when I was first hired at Live Nation in merch.
Wow.
And you were always referred to as a consistent powerhouse where it didn't really matter what the turnaround time was, what really the style was. We were just send it to Brian.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
and to this day, that's still how people talk about you. You are, when I think of a machine of someone who just has you have figured out each one of your little things that you can do.
Yeah.
And it's just I am constantly amazed at the amount of work that you are capable of turning around in the timeline, because I have commissioned you for projects and you were always the first one to turn things back in. Well, and I am the exact opposite. I am dead last.
Oh my goodness. So right out of the gate, just gassing me up here. Ay. Yeah, it's goodness, yeah. It's been, I mean, someone on the very first day I started doing this, they told me it was a race. Is it not a race? Was I informed wrong?
I mean, I'm sorry that you're hearing about this so many years into it.
Actually, big reveal. I take the mask off. I'm full android. I'm a complete
truly.
actual robot.
You're actually 75.
Yeah.
You've been around the sun a couple times.
There we go. Feels like it. Wow. Goodness. Yeah. The consistent powerhouse. All right. I don't know about that, but I try. I guess that's what I'm striving for, but I'll take it. I'll take it from Cal.
I mean, if you want to go ahead and share your intro.
My intro.
Because I'm gonna do my intro of people, because I have a very specific idea, but I forget that you guys also have your own spiel that you give people when you introduce yourself to people.
Oh, when I introduce myself,
what do you
to
do?
People. Goodness. Well, yeah, I guess for those who aren't familiar, hello, Kelliot Nation. First off, not my target demographic, as I'm an old man at this point. So it's good that you welcome me into your good graces. My name is Brian Morgani, but if you are terminally online and follow along with the design world, I'm known as Flesh and Bone Design, which has been my moniker since 2011. So I'm in year 14 of doing this as full-time freelance. And yeah, I mean, that would be your general overarching introduction of who I am. I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania, so I live in the absolute middle of nowhere. With my partner Rachel of 16 years, and we have 3 beautiful cats, Willow, Lucy, and Ira. So just live a quiet life and sit at the computer all day and do my little designs, and that's that. But that's the easy intro.
I mean, that's all life really is. Right. That's really all it boils down to is, do you have a nice peaceful life? Do you have some great cats?
There we go.
Yeah, partners, friends, family that you can enjoy that piece with. That's really all it is.
What more could any of us ask for?
Exactly. So you have been in merch for the majority of your freelance. So
yeah,
how do you, because you come from, this is gonna sound I had an interesting foot into the door where I got extraordinarily lucky, and I was hired at Live Nation, a company that you also used to do freelance for.
Yeah.
And getting into merch is a question that so many people ask.
Yeah.
And it's tough because there's no easy answer, because there's so many routes that one can take to get in, but it's also changing every 4 years. There's kind of new strategy of how you get in, because it used to be more traditional, where you had either like people who came from like the DIY punk scene doing shirts for their buddies, doing stuff for local shows, and that, or working for like a screen printer locally, and then kind of getting their way in, then working through like a local music scene. Or you go more of like the route that I went, where it was you enter more corporate, but it might be through like a touring company or also a record label, where you just get kind of thrown into it.
Yeah.
And so, how did you enter this wonderful, wonderful, problem-free, easy, totally chill industry?
Right. Yeah. So long story short, I am from the traditional route that you're talking about. As someone of my age, I was part of that come up, the middle class of millennials that became the first big driving force of like what became the buzzword of the creative class. I sort of come from that group of people. I'm 38, so I graduated high school in 2005. Like I would have been I didn't go to college or anything, but I would have been like class of 2008. So like that was the big boom, like millennials entering and kind of being this overwhelming force of people looking to dive into creative fields right when the internet was exploding into its new form, when creative work in general was exploding into its new form. So I just got lucky in the sense that I was born at a time where I could ride a wave and not even realize I was riding a wave. So like as far as like the actual entry point for me, and two, I guess like when Kel says how do you get into merch, we're talking about like the merch machine, the greater industry, I guess you'd say, as something that would be, or at least like from my own perspective, I would view it as like the major leagues, almost like major league sports. It's like getting the ability to work with companies that have access to like the most commercially visible artist in the world. It's like it's the major leagues of merch. So my entry point into that actually is almost around the same entry point as you into the industry.
Interesting.
So I started in 2011 almost as a complete mistake. Like I do not have any type of art background. I am not an artist. I don't like art. I never have thought about art. The last art class I ever took was in like
This
middle
is
school,
killing
right?
me.
So like I came from music. I was a musician. I left high
Okay.
school, and 1 week after my graduation, I immediately started touring. At that point, I was in metalcore bands. You were talking early 2000s, MySpace, peak filth days. Like, of course, I'm in like a ridiculous metalcore band touring the country. And in one way or another, with different bands or working with different bands, I was touring full time from around 2005 to 2012 because I didn't go to college or anything. So I was just like this absolute tour rat, bottom feeder guy for years. So my life was either playing music or working with music. And again, not in any sort of rock star way. Like I got to do some really cool things, but I was never like in a cool rock star band that like did anything substantial. It was a lot of DIY touring and whatnot, and I'm really really grateful for a lot of those opportunities. Like I got to go tour the world and whatnot, and it was great to be able to live my formative years in a time when that was still very possible. But the very last project that I was a part of that ended up being the most successful was a post rock band that I had in that was called Dead Horse, and it was kind of like along the veins of like Sigur Rós, This Will Destroy You, that kind of music. When that was kind of coming up right at like the 2010s, and again coming from just this DIY world, we were met with a new problem for us where something was starting to hit and break through, and we were doing more, but all of a sudden there was a lot more need for design assets and no money to actually cover the cost of any of that. So it was one of those very just pragmatic things of like, oh, well, maybe I should open up one of these programs, start tinkering, and see what I can do to just build things for what is actually needed collateral wise for the album builds, for the tour builds, for all the merch and whatnot. And that cascaded for a couple of years. But it was like, I mean, we're talking like obscene just like, what, maybe I can just mold these things. Who knows? Who cares? Just literally having no frame of reference even for like what the design world was. But just having fun with it and realizing early on, like, there was something that was captivating me with all of that. So I had this like kind of two-year span of like a lot of touring with that group, where all of that was sort of on display on a nightly basis. So it very quickly became this like, oh, who did your design work? I did the design work. Can you do design work for my band? And it was this very, very, very organic thing of like, wait, you want to give me money to do this for you? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just like, I'm a hack, So it was one of those things where, that many years in, that part of my life was sort of like ramping down, and I was ramping into this kind of new, chapter of existence in my mid-20s, and just what I was, kind of experiencing with these different bands or management companies or local promoters or whatever. All of them were just kind of saying, I really like what you do here. If you can do it for us, let me know. So I was like, well, maybe this is something I should explore. Maybe this could be like a next chapter for me. Maybe this is like, maybe it could be something, maybe not. So I just told myself, I'll give it a try. And if I ever go 2 weeks without getting a new job, I will figure out what to do with my life. 14 years later, it's never happened. So that's why I'm
The
still here.
faucet turned on
Yep.
and it never turned off.
Turned on, never turned off. So that is why I'm doing. I still am just like, I don't know, I'm just waiting for it all to stop.
I mean, that's kind of the general constant feeling, and I think it's something that some people might not enjoy the feeling of when they are a freelancer, is that there is this sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Where it's like the unreliable aspect of it is also kind of what makes it a little appealing, because it's constantly kind of like always a quest.
Yeah.
To see what, you never really know what the next thing is going to be. And I think freelancing is more, and this is a hot take, I think being self-employed is more reliable than being employed by a company.
Definitely.
Because part of our job is built around loosely planning, but we have, I think, more connections where we have like just like a wider net.
Yeah.
And we can pull in from other people when we need it.
Of course, yeah.
And then there's, like, you work at a company, sure, if things are going well, you have a consistent paycheck, whatever, you could get fired tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%.
And you could have absolutely nothing
Yeah.
in on the back burner, versus being self-employed. You kind of always have to have things going on the back burner, because the faucet could turn off,
Of course, yeah.
and that could be it.
Yeah.
And so you always have like this thing. But I think once like the ball gets rolling,
Yeah.
because it is so network based,
Yes.
and that's something that it takes a long time to establish.
Absolutely.
Like you were saying, like once you get a couple of those things going, you meet another person and they're like, oh, I like this, I need this,
Yeah.
can you do this for me?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, yeah, sure. And then you just keep, it's like one thing at a time, but it takes a while to build that, because you're also building your own creative skills, especially if you come from like a self-taught background.
Yeah.
You're constantly thinking like, these people, you guys like this?
Oh, right. Yeah.
You think I'm cool? You think you want to give me money?
Yep.
And so you're learning so much about yourself, but you're also putting together those like extra pieces of like, I'm doing this by myself.
Definitely.
I'm doing this by myself. There's no one else. It's just me. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but I commend you for doing it in such a different time.
Very.
When we weren't so, you've gotten to see both ends of the spectrum now, where you started in a very offline way.
Definitely. Yeah. Like, I mean, when you're talking, when I did that, when I started in 2011, like I was still touring.
Yeah.
So it's like I stopped touring partway through, like halfway through 2012 or so. So it's like the first year or so, like I'm kind of like fudging through little things here and there when I can, but didn't really like make a serious go for it until, you know, it was time to like kind of pack up that chapter of life and move on to the next. And again, this has so much to do with like circumstance that is completely out of my control, where like it's almost untenable or even unrealistic in today's world. Like at that point, you know, my partner and I were moving to live with some people down in North Carolina. Like we'd lived in Pennsylvania at that point. We were moving to North Carolina. We were in a house situation with, there was going to be 5 of us living in a house. Our rent was going to be $200 a person a month. It's like, that doesn't even exist anymore. That world does not exist. And because I lived in a world where I could still kind of live as like a sewer rat, there was a lot more opportunity to take more risk, where so many people don't have the privilege to take the kind of risk that a lot of like millennial freelancers got to build their careers off of. And a lot of times I don't think that sort of like context is acknowledged enough. Like, you know, it's that very like when boomers like, it's a different, like even like this little window, like it was a very, very different time compared to what so many younger people are up against now, coming out of school, or even in the, you know, since COVID, even before that. It's like we're talking about things where people are immediately in financially insecure situations that have to sort of be addressed before they can even say, oh, can I build something creatively, you know? And that sort of stress did not exist at that moment in time for so many of us. So it was like, because I happened to be born in a certain year, I had the opportunity to take advantage of that, you know? And that's just unbelievable when you really start to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a very common thing that I'm asked, and I will flat out tell people.
Yeah.
Because I don't, as someone with a platform, if you will, I am so nervous for young designers to take a risk that could be financially devastating for them, because the majority of people don't have rich parents.
Yes.
They might not have any relationship with any sort of support network like that. Like they can't just go, oh, I'll move back in with my parents or anything. Like it's very much you're on your own.
Yeah.
And I am always so scared for other maybe like design content creators and stuff who will flaunt this almost like self-employed, glamorized freelance lifestyle of like, here's how you can do it. And I'm like, I'm scared for those people because I don't want them to, you know, take a risk where they could be quitting, you know, a stable quote unquote job where they don't have that foundation laid, they don't have that network already, like the roots being there.
Yeah.
And it's such a risk for them that I don't want people to see like some like freelancer online living this very glamorous lifestyle. And I'm like, I don't want you to think that that's what it's going to be. So like my general rule that like I tell people when they're starting to think about wanting to freelance, because I didn't want to freelance, I just ended up here.
Yeah.
And I say like if you're asking how to get clients, you're not ready.
Definitely.
That there's not like necessarily going to be a website where people will think like they can go like a Fiverr type of situation where I log into graphicdesign.com and I get work and they print me money. And I was able to be who I am now because I had a really solid foot in the door, and then that door was blown open. And then I was shot into space. Yeah. And that space being the early aspect of the pandemic. Yeah. Where I was one of the first massive rounds of layoffs that people were getting because every creative department got gutted. Yeah. Right at the start of the pandemic. And I made more money from unemployment than I did my salary. And I was like, oh my God. This is great. But I never got a stimulus check, unfortunately. But wow. There were a couple, like, that was able to sustain me for a little bit. And then my Foo Fighters album cover was also a good chunk of change. So it was able to hold me over until I could start to tap into that network that I had of people I had already kind of started to pin down in the industry,
Yeah.
where I knew the right people at right merchandise agencies
Yeah.
that I could just be like, hey, I know nobody wants to hire a graphic designer right now, but like,
Well,
put my name in your inbox.
I think, a good thing, like, for people who don't know, like, I for years, I've been, at the end of every year, our industry, like the industry that Kel and I work in, kind of shuts down for, basically like from Thanksgiving to the New Year.
Yeah.
And for the last 4 or 5 years now, I've kind of held like these open office hours with creatives where I have talks where people can just sign up and we'll just talk. Doesn't matter like what you want to talk about, or where if you're like a new creative or seasoned veteran, like we just talk shop, see
Yeah.
where everyone's at. And like so often, I have these sort of conversations with young creatives year after year where it's like I'm at that point. How it's like, yeah, how do I get clients? How do I do this? Like how where's the client machine that I put my coin into
Yeah.
and say and get going. And it is one of those weird things where, yeah, like so many people see things online, even with people like you and I, where it's like someone like you who has a very large following, same with Elliot, or I mean, even me, that I do not have a large following, but I'm doing things in the industry so people pay attention,
Yeah.
um, and just go, I want to do what you do.
You're popular in a different, you're on the popular in the different end of the space where the industry really knows you,
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
which is arguably more valuable.
So it's just like, how do I do what you do? How do I do what you do? How do I do what you
Yeah.
do? And it's like so many times I'm trying to tell people like you're asking the wrong question. Like you are never going to do what I do. You're never going to do what Kel does because you aren't Kel. You aren't me. We have unique experiences and unique paths that got us to where we are, and you are going to have your own unique experience and your own path to where you're going to go, that when you look back on it, it's going to make total sense. Like so many people are looking for this formula to like get into industry A or industry B, and it's like you might not even have a seat at the table in industry A, B. You don't know. Like that's kind of the fun and the risk of all of this. Like I did what I did for 7 years before I did anything that was more quote substantial, as far as something that has some sort of like leverage behind it. And I think I wouldn't be able to do what I do today without everything that I went through in those first 7 years. And 7 years sounds like a crazy amount of time to people, but like it's what shapes you into who you are and the designer you're going to be and the designer that you actually want to become, that actually goes out into the world and makes the imprint that you want. You're not necessarily going to know that day one. You might
Yeah.
think you want, you didn't even want to be a freelancer. I didn't even know that I wanted to be a designer, let alone work
Exactly.
in
And
merch.
here we are.
Yeah, and it's like there are so many industries, there's so many things that people can get involved with, and it's like
Yeah.
unless you are actually living your own story that's building off of the world and the community that's directly surrounding you, you're never going to actually know where that leads, because you're always looking and comparing to how someone got involved with this or got involved with that or got involved with it. And it's like, yeah,
Exactly.
and I just feel like it's become such a product of our time, and like social media, the commodification of the individual, and everyone saying, I did it this way, this is how you can do it, because it's selling. It's like the new way people sell a get rich quick scheme, like follow these
They're
steps.
selling a course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And even if it's not selling a course, it's just selling the idea, like the illusion
Yeah.
of like, this is how I did it, you can probably do it too. And everything isn't one size fits all. And I think so many designers, and young designers especially, feel that frustration because they see other designers sharing these sort of like distilled tidbits, whether they're content
Yeah.
creators or designers. They're like, I've done the work, I've tried the things, I've plugged everything into the equations you're giving me, and I'm still coming up short. And it's like, yeah, because maybe those equations aren't the equations for you. Like the superpower of all of us as individuals is that we have our own unique place in the world. We have our own unique voicing in the world. And so many people are trying to overstep who they are and where they are, and not realizing that like you can't get to where you're going unless you're stepping directly in front of you. And instead people are trying to just leap into something that they have no context of whatsoever. So I always encourage people that, like, you know, your unique perspective or place in the world is yours alone, that like no one else can touch. Like, whether it's where you actually are, the people that you have in your life. And I'm not talking about connections to get you work. I just mean the literal people in your life that you talk to, whether they're actual friends or family members or acquaintances or businesses that you frequent, whatever it might be. You have a unique perspective in your own world that shapes and dictates how you can actually be of value and service in a creative way to those people around you, that then grows in these tiny, tiny onion layers, day after day, month after month, year after year, that leads to larger connections outside of you, outside of yourself, outside of your little bubble, that leads you unintentionally in the directions of the industries that you can actually be of service to. And that is going to look so much different than you ever thought it was, like when you would envision it or you would compare it to other designers. And that's kind of like the joy or the fun or the frustration or even like the terrifying nature of building freelance, because it's all calculated risk that still could just lead to things that you could never imagine, be it good or bad. It's a wild, wild ride, and it's not for everyone. It's not for every personality type, but there's so much to take into account that I think a lot of people like really don't touch on, and it's something that needs to be talked about a lot more often.
Absolutely. Like that's like the one of the biggest things that I have continuously like tried to tie into everything is that like I am an exception to the rule. Like my story, like I do not want that to be the bar of every single thing that happened to me for me to end up doing what I do now
Yeah.
has been through just like the early start of my career was so horrible. So horrible. I started going bald and I almost quit to do flowers.
Wow.
I was working weddings. I was making more money doing that. I was like, I'm just going to become a florist.
Yeah.
And like, it's only through a lot of like just the tiniest stars aligning that like there will never be another story like mine. And I will share like the negative aspects of my career so people, feel better that like when you have a really painful start to a career that like it just comes with time where things will start to smooth out because you're gaining just like industry insight, and you're also going through like a lot of personal growth, and people I feel like forget about,
Yeah.
especially when they're young, they're like becoming a person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there's such a tremendous pressure that we put on ourselves. And also I think from like a familial aspect where I have parents who are very hard on me. And so it puts a lot of pressure on like you have to succeed, especially if you pursue like a creative career. It's like,
Yeah.
I have to succeed because I convinced a bunch of people that this was a good idea. And if I'm not succeeding, they're going to be right.
Yeah.
And that was like very much my parents' mentality, where when I was struggling, it was like, well, I told you so. This is why we didn't want you to do this. And so it forces you to be like, oh, well, I guess I gotta figure it out. I guess I gotta, you gotta keep going. And it's tough.
Yeah.
But it comes with just like, there's so many like compounding levels of privilege that a lot of people at the current the current situation of the industry is, I think, starting to change, but I don't think it might be changing at the speed I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
I really like, one thing that I'm trying to do with like the labels that I have a fairly decent relationship with is I'm constantly feeding freelancers. I'm like, please,
Yeah.
please hire these people. Oh my God. And it's tough because a lot of these older systems are not ready
No.
to change. They're not ready to push out these people that like I thought maybe with like 2020 happening being this kind of push where like, oh, maybe we should get rid of some of like these like, you know, bigger people who have like been horribly racist, they've been horribly misogynist, they've been like they've committed horrible acts to women. Like I was hoping maybe we would have more of this change start to happen. But I'm learning from working with these labels that unfortunately isn't really the case that I thought it was going to be. I felt I was like, oh, maybe we have some good momentum here.
No.
No, no.
If anything, it's going in the opposite direction.
I feel like people are, and this is a general cultural thing of doubling
Yeah.
down on things, and
Of course.
it's scary. It's scary because I think with just the general attitude of being a working creative person is already really difficult.
Oh yeah.
And living at a time where everything is so crazy expensive, crazy expensive.
Yeah, definitely.
And being a self-employed person in the US, certainly they don't make it easy for you.
Yeah.
Tax-wise, they certainly don't make they don't make it. They don't. I thought we encouraged small businesses in America. I thought we liked that. Come on, wrong.
Right.
But it is really frustrating. So I agree that there is, and that's something that I've been accused of like glamorizing graphic design, and I'm like, I don't know what glamour you think. Just because like if you get like tiny binoculars out and you just look at specific things I post on Instagram and you only think about that, and I'm like, you don't think about how much I complain about this industry? Do you know how I feel like I am like sitting in my office and I am rocking in my chair and I am like grumbling and I'm like writing things on sticky notes and I'm crumbling them up and I'm throwing them and I'm like I feel like I'm one of the only people in the industry, and I know you're one of the other people who feels the same way I do, where there are still so many problems and I don't know how to fix them. And you know, we're only two people and we do what we can, but it's tough because I was hoping that the next generation of designers would have maybe a little bit of a better foundation to enter the music industry, specifically with design. But it hasn't changed since I entered it. And that's been 8 years I've been working in music. So it's more or less the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the industry, with the trademark next to it,
Yeah.
industry capital I, it's not going to change. It's a behemoth for a reason, and these very large entities are very slow rolling just due to the nature of the beast. And it's not like a right or wrong, it's not a good or bad, it's just kind of, it is what it is. But I think, yeah, so often, like what we were talking about, like the over glamorization, where people almost try to like put that on, like, oh, like I'd love to do what you do, or I can't believe you get to do what you do, and it's like people don't have the proper context as to what it is. Like, the industry is more than the industry capital ITM, and so many people think that, like, unless you're working with these very specific companies or these very specific management teams, you aren't a part of the industry. And it's like, that couldn't be further from the truth, and I think of it in the same sort of parallels of like where I came from with music. Like when I came up in my own town in DIY punk and hardcore, it's like no one was handing anyone anything on a silver platter, and you had your own community that said, if you want it, you build it. And I just applied that same sort of ethos to design. It's like, oh, I don't know if this will ever turn into anything. I don't know if I will ever work with any hotshot names that I might desire to work with, but it's not even going to be a question I can see answered unless I go ahead and just build the thing myself. So it's like, and that's what I was kind of talking about before, where like people forget they have the opportunity every single day to just start building that for themselves, where like stop thinking about the industry, stop thinking about this like huge zoomed out picture, and just say like, how can I use my actual skills, my talents, my voicings, my unique individualistic perspective, and apply it to the actual community around me, whether it's the coffee shop I frequent, whether it's the band that I know, whether it's someone in my actual life or like the other job that I work, that I can elevate their vision through design. Like those are the steps that you actually take to build the thing that starts rolling that ball up the hill, that then gets it to the point where it can start rolling on its own momentum down the other side. And I don't know why people, so many young people I talk to have that same sort of correlation where like it's like no one told them that they can just go do. And that is like bizarre to me, because everything when I was growing up was that encouragement, just go do. And it's like it's just disappeared into thin air. I don't know.
I think a part of it too is, and it's where people, like myself, come into play with, like, because they see the final product.
Yeah.
That they don't see kind of like everything that led up to me posting an Ariana Grande shirt. Like it's everything else that went into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in a culture, especially like in America, like it's so, there's this sense of urgency with, well, I have to be an art director and I'm 22. And it's like, my brother in Christ, you do not want that. First of all.
Exactly. Exactly.
And like there's, I think like if you ever see someone like that, like be very skeptical of that, because there's a good chance, and I don't know if you've encountered it as much as I have, but there's a good chance where there are a lot of people like that who they just have rich parents. They just have rich parents.
Yeah.
And it is a thorn in my side the number of times that I encounter people like that. I'm like, oh, because you actually don't know how to do anything. You don't know how to do anything, and you have people reporting to you, and you don't know how to do anything. Cool. And it's, I guess, like we want to get to the final thing. We want to just sign up for graphic design and then start working for Beyonce. And it's like there are people forget there's so much that goes into it. And also from being on like the other end, where I feel like I'm very comfortable in what I do now, and I've started finally dipping my toes more into art direction 8 years into my career. 8 years being in music, at least 10 in graphic design. And I feel like there are people who end up on this side who have very, very little experience
Definitely
doing the things that people have spent their entire career doing. And I cannot tell you how much of a burden these people end up being. And it's usually people who get hired through like a nepo hire, if you will, or like I have the right connections because I come from a very wealthy background, and I have the right side note. And so they end up on this side of the fence, and I'm like, why are you here? You don't we don't have time for this. Like, and that's the way that the industry works, is we're constantly in an emergency. Everything is always last minute. So we don't have time to go, well, here, let me show you how to be a creative director. That's what a great time for someone else to teach you how to be a creative director. When we have a campaign starting and we have to go to print in 2 weeks, we don't have anything done. And you're in charge. And let me, graphic designer, teach you how to be creative director.
It's
cool.
It's wild. I mean, that whole world has changed dramatically in the last 5 years or so. When COVID hit, everyone decided that they needed to add creative director to their job listing, just because it was like this whole new world. It was like a
it is the craziest phenomenon. Like I have never seen so many unqualified creative directors, because like then you're people like us who then were like, oh cool, creative director, and then I'm talking with them and I'm like,
but even the nature of the beast, the nature of what a creative director has changed so much in the last 7 years. uh, and it's one of those things that like the speed of it all just keeps like doubling down and changing and morphing in real time to where it's like completely unrecognizable to what it used to be. And like, I mean, there have only been in 14 years. I mean, despite what I do when I'm working one-on-one with clients, where I'm actually directing things, I have never, besides maybe 3-4 instances, ever done any like large-scale creative direction. Um, it's a very specific title. It's a very specific set of like character traits
Yeah.
and even professional characteristics that I just haven't been called upon for that sort of responsibility as of yet, because I have different strengths in different things, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of times people are always looking. They're thinking like, oh, I need to like level up into this, and they might not even have the proper character traits to sustain that type of like design thinking, as opposed to other facets of like working in the creative machine. So it's been interesting to see
Yeah.
everyone kind of like play this weird musical chairs game of like you know who amongst us is not going to be a creative director. It's weird. I don't know.
No, absolutely. Like it's I understand like the like fake it till you make it type of thing, and I feel like that is what a lot, but I also feel like there's a lot of uh we need to do like a big vocab session for like
Yeah.
every creative person. I'm like,
Yeah.
here's what a creative director does. Here's what an art director does. They're different things.
Yeah.
And we need to understand that in order to be a creative or an art director, you have to do every single job that is underneath both of those positions.
For sure.
And sometimes an art director is above a creative director.
Yeah.
Sometimes a creative director is above an art director.
Mm-hmm.
And there are reasons for that. And it just, I think there's so much power and being really good at just the work itself.
For sure.
And it's something that I don't aspire to be this big art or creative director. I like just doing the work.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is this, general attitude of like capitalism, whatever, like of constantly moving up into like management or some sort of like power position.
Yes.
Where then, you're delegating.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's a skill. To be able to manage and delegate
Yes.
is something that I can do. I don't love doing it.
Yeah.
I would much rather just do the art itself. And when you get up to that level, you're doing less art.
Yes. Oh, wait.
So if you like doing
Yeah.
if you like doing the stuff,
Yeah.
don't go up into management
Exactly. Yeah.
because you're going to be away from the stuff. And I think there's just so much power in being a good, like yourself, like a consistent designer who hits deadlines. They have like either like a variety of styles or one style that they do really well that's like a bread and butter style that can be adapted easily.
Yeah.
And there's so much power in that. And you want to be consistently hired as a freelancer. Like either I think there's more power in having a small handful of styles that you can do really well.
For sure.
I think it's personally better, and I see it more like when I'm either like commissioning people, or I'm just like on a roster of freelancers. Like there's so much power in being able to do a couple different things really well instead of one specific thing.
Oh yeah.
Because people will reach out to you more because you can do a variety of things, and they know that they can consistently go to you and you will consistently turn around good work.
Yes.
And that is like, finding those styles takes a long time.
Definitely.
I feel like if you asked me at the beginning of my career, the styles that I thought I'd be good at,
Mm-hmm.
would not be able to name a single one of the ones that I do now. And those are the ones that I am consistently hired for. I have like, I'd break them into like 5 categories.
Yeah.
Of like those styles.
Yeah.
Because I will always have someone come to me for one of those.
Definitely.
So.
And that's one of those weird things that over the course of my career I've seen change in the greater narrative too, where for a really long time, especially dealing specifically with graphic design, from like my millennial perspective, the trade of getting into design, whether you were going to go like a corporate route through school or you were going to be a freelancer, it was very much like in this thing that I talk about all the time, where it's like artist with a capital A versus artist with lowercase a, and like graphic design was, in what I would say artist with a lowercase a, where like it had your artistic leanings or perspectives had absolutely nothing to do with what you were going to do as far as like being a successful graphic designer, because you were there first and foremost to relay the vision of a client by whatever means necessary through the skills that you have. And your own artistry would be something that would be viewed completely compartmentalized and separate from your endeavors and pursuits as a graphic designer. And then as we saw the proliferation of social media through the 2010s, you had the flip switch of like the complete neoliberal commodification of the individual, and therefore you had like a huge influx with Gen Z of the artist as a capital A, and designers saying, I want to be hired and known for my artistry that then can be attached to someone else's vision as some sort of almost collaborative synergy, as opposed to the other way around. It's like this whole, again, it's not a right or wrong thing, it's not a good or bad thing, it's just a complete metamorphosis.
It's changed.
Yeah, where you have these two very different disciplines that people pursue and different strategies that go into them, and in turn get very, very, very different looks at the end of the day, as far as how you're hired, how you're perceived, how you're actually used in builds, with whether it's one-off clients or larger team collaborative things. There's a seat at the table for everyone, but like there are very different kind of new challenges, it seems, with like the artist as a capital A perspective really trying to like overextend into everything. And it's like it's almost like we're kind of like losing the narrative and kind of losing the plot of like client work anymore, because of this enormous push for like personal aesthetic being captured
Yes.
in everything.
Absolutely. Like it's, and we had talked about a little bit of this before we started about like I've encountered that dichotomy with working with people who have come to me to hire me, and I've learned in that process that they're not hiring me for my skills, they're hiring me as Kel Lauren the brand.
Yeah.
And that when I started like realizing that with some of the relationships that I had in the industry, I was like, oh, this is weird. I don't feel good about this, because I want to just do the work. I don't like I accidentally became this brand. It was never really like super intentional that I wanted to be like this big a recognizable graphic designer. I just wanted to do the thing.
Yeah.
And for some reason people liked hearing about it, and that's really all that came with it, because I like complaining online and people like that. So it's interesting because I think like the best designers are like best designers as in doing consistent work. They're booked and busy. They're not getting caught up in the extracurricular of the world.
Yeah.
They're just doing the work.
Yeah.
And there's a peace that comes with that, where they're not wrapped up in personality. They're not wrapped up in capital I industry. They're just doing the thing.
Exactly.
And there's so much power in that, because it's knowing I don't need more. I'm just here to do the thing, because I feel like that's why we started doing this. We do this because we're like, oh, this was fun.
Yeah.
I like clicking around. I like doing this. I like drawing, whatever. And I feel like it's like the commodification of like this individual, this artist as an individual, that every artist has to be this brand type of thing. And it's something that like really stresses me out to think about. And I feel like young designers have to become this brand in order to be hired for their work, because they see people online be this brand.
Yes.
And it's something that's why I have such a deep connection to freelancing, because I don't ever want to become like graphic designer persona.
Yeah.
And like, cause I'm like, no, I want to be able to talk about the industry. I want to be able to talk about the work and mean what I say. Cause there's a, like, and it's like a general with like content creators whose content is revolving around a profession.
Absolutely.
Where they just talk about doing the profession. I'm like, but are you doing the profession?
Yeah.
Or are you just talking about the profession?
Exactly.
Like teachers, for example, like there's people who've quit teaching, but all of their content is around teaching, or like nursing. All of their content is nursing, but they lost their nursing license.
Yeah.
Because they were making content about it. And it's just so interesting because I'm like, you shouldn't make the content because you're misleading people. That I don't want these young people who see this thing and then go, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing someone who's not actually doing the job.
Yeah.
They're seeing the content sphere angle of that job.
Yeah.
And it's why I stopped posting on YouTube for so long, because I was like, I have to do the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's important, because I don't want to be like a fraud and just like, you know, sell people this idea of what graphic design is. Because at the end of the day, I'm still an artist. Like, that's why I do this.
Yeah.
I am still like a lowercase a artist. I just like doing that.
Yeah.
It's just for me. I'll always make for me. But I've, you know, been forced into, I have to work. So I have to learn to compartmentalize my job and still hold things for me without even like posting about it online.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very difficult, and I feel like I feel like I have to be extremely self-aware of those things, because I don't want to mislead people. Like, that's like my biggest, like, I'm so afraid of people getting into graphic design and then them like getting evicted because they didn't make money on graphic design.
Yeah.
And like that scares me so much, because I've been there. I've almost been evicted because I decided to try out freelance graphic design years ago, way before I was any sort of prepared. And then you get an eviction notice on your door and you're like, oh, okay.
For sure.
We need to pivot here.
Yeah, you see people like do that in every walk of life. You know, it's not some sort of like freelance specific thing. You know, people see these formulaic attributes, you know, through social media of like getting involved with any type of walk of life, and they're just distilled down to these talking points that fit within, you know, a reel's length of like a minute or something. So it's like, yeah, a caveman can do it, you know, and everyone thinks, okay, yeah, I'll do this.
And then they're like, it's not working for me.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's because it's not everyone's circumstance is just so different.
Yeah.
And it's like, I am so scared for young people, because I want everyone to have a consistent like stream of income. I want them to be making work that they love. And it's just so difficult to get to that point.
Oh, 100%.
And then you can get to that point thinking you're going to like it, and you're going to hate it.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And yeah, I mean, like I said, with what I started, you know, 2011, and for 7 years or so, it's like I didn't have any, you know, industry with a capital I involvement. Everything was just through friends of friends, growing through local, regional stuff. You know, most years I was still making, you know, $20,000 or less. You know, it's like I was not making some sort of viable adult career salary. You know, this was, and I try to like relay the severity of that to people, where it's like, just because you do a lot doesn't mean the payoff is always going to be there either, you know. But
especially in music,
like that building is so crucial to getting to the next step. So you have to set up a lifestyle that even dictates that type of growth, where like, consider yourself a minimum wage employee for a very long time, and if you can sustain a life that you can justify to yourself, you can probably build something, you know, that is going to take off differently for everyone. 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, who knows? But if you're committed to that craft, you're going to slowly see it like evolve. But yeah, people think it's like, you know, I got a couple clients and that means I'm going to start making 6 figures or something. It's like that it's so far off, you know. if it even ever gets there, like it's all just a big gamble for everyone involved, everyone, and you
Yeah.
just never really know how it's going to end up. But yeah, I don't know.
What do you think like the biggest misconception is about our job in particular of doing freelance merchandise graphic design?
That it's fun. Uh, that like that it's fun. That it is a pursuit full of creativity, even. Um,
Yes.
I want to be careful with how I say this. It's to work full time in creative fields. You end up having like the Pegasus effect. You fly too close to the sun, you lose your wings. If you get too involved with something that you are very, very close to, it can ruin you. And like I said, I'm not an artist. I don't come from an art background, so it's very hard for me to get burned in that sense because my actual happy place as a creative is in music, not in art.
Yeah.
So art is a trade for me, and it's something I enjoy. It's something I apply creativity to, but I don't attach my creative identity to. But if your creative identity is wrapped up in art with a capital A, and you want to pursue like pushing that art out into the world through the tangled web of commerce, you are probably going to hate your life and everything that you do because it's a constant tug of war and a constant distillation and a constant like conflict of interest with your own creative pursuit. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. I fly way too close to the sun. I'm constantly flying into the sun. Like I'm like, ah, God, fuck, again, I did it again. I did it again.
Exactly. And I see that. I see that with you because
Thank you.
it's so important to you. It's so important to you.
Yeah.
Like I
And
did in between.
it's hard.
Yeah, I did between 11 and 1,200 designs last year. And
Fucking nuts.
if you start to think about that through the lens of creativity, it is an untenable amount of output to actually attach some sort of spiritual connection to.
Yes.
And I think that that's where a lot of people get this sort of stuff twisted, when you're working in commerce. And it can be at the top of the game. It can be it doesn't have to be what Kel and I do. It's any pursuit. It's a corporate pursuit. It's whatever. Like, there is going to be a large body of work that you are attached to over a career and a large body of output that needs paid attention to. And like, it isn't necessarily going to be tied to your artistry. It's going to be tied to all of the creative thinking traits that you have as an individual. You aren't necessarily hired for your talent. Your talent is assumed. It's all of the other creative thinking traits that you personally have that are applied to that artistry that go into the formula that you bring to the table of the specific build or strategy that you are like taking place in. And I think a lot of times people just think it's, oh, we love you and what you do, and please just do what you do, no holds barred. Just let that creativity flourish. We can't say enough good things. Like, it's the complete polar opposite of that. I always like kind of explain it in football metaphors, which is kind of funny, but like I love football, and it's like I think a lot of young creatives think it's like playing Madden where you get the ball, you throw the Hail Mary and you get a touchdown every play, and it's just like, yep, that's how it is. Where like the reality is like you are just one tiny cog with a bunch of other people building very large systems, and you have a role in that machine that you have to start to understand and have a presence of mind of what your specific role is within that machine to actually better participate with the greater collaborative effort that you're involved with. Like, you have to figure out how your creative thinking is an actual asset to the team and the build and the ask, rather than what your artistry is individually within that. And that can be a very like convoluted, like kind of vague, abstract thing for people to wrap their minds around. But it's like it's so much broader than the specifics of just like creativity, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of like separating the, and I feel like any artist or like creative person in general who, like, you'll have this reckoning where you'll kind of realize, like, you settle into like the job itself. Like you'll realize, oh, it's not just I click and I put stickers and I paint and I do this fun thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
once in a blue moon, a project like that might grace your inbox.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time, it is learning to disengage and just know to press the right buttons to get it out the door. Like, especially with like the way that our industry works, where we're working on such tight timelines and really big personalities. And we're also working with budgets and production limitations.
Yep.
And finding the right way to get all of those things to align is going to be the full extent of every creative muscle you could flex.
Definitely.
Just like, it's not even like the art. It is just aligning the right building blocks and then going to production with it. And it's sometimes you don't have the capability of doing any sort of frills. It is just get it out the door.
Of course, yeah.
And that's like, and it sucks because it's like, oh, it's the commodification of our craft. But in a sense, it helps you separate a little bit of, if you are an artist and like you do this because it is your lifeblood.
Yeah.
You are going to become extremely emotionally devastated.
Yeah.
With like, and that is, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
Like I say, like, if you don't like interviewing for jobs, do not become a freelancer. If you do not constantly like being told no, do not become a freelancer.
Definitely.
You love rejection, become a freelancer. Like, that is, it is just every single day getting thrown back in your face of, actually, we don't like, it's like going, here's this thing that I put my heart and soul into.
Yeah.
Do you like it? And I go, no. Ew. And then you go, oh, okay.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. I don't know why I thought that would be cool. And it's so difficult, and like learning when to lock in and go, I just need to do these things.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my paycheck and I'm going to go home.
There we go.
Like, there is so much peace and power in that, because you save, like, this genuine advice for like people who have the wire loose that I do. Like, you have to find a way to protect yourself from that and hold a piece of that artistry for yourself, because otherwise you will lose your mind. You will get really, like, talking about like burnout. I get burned out when I get too emotionally involved.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm flying way too close to the sun, I'm getting burned, and that's when I'm getting burned out.
Exactly.
I fly into the sun,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, God, I did it again.
Yep.
So and when will I ever learn? And I do it again a couple weeks later. It's fine. Sure. So like, it's difficult, and you can stave off a little bit of that burnout when you learn that it's just a job, I guess, like, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
People forget that, like, there is like glitz and glamour that comes with it. Yeah, it's nice to be guest listed on a show. Okay, it is nice. Do you feel extremely pathetic asking? I'm going around to management. I'm like, guest list, spare guest list.
See, that's why you just live where I live, where there are no shows and there's nothing to even go to. So like,
oh, girl, do you think people stop in Portland? Nobody stops in Portland.
Yeah, no,
so
you're right though. I mean, all that is so spot on. Like, I always encourage people. There's all these different articles of, like, you know, you can look up if you just Google, like, you know, different ways of creative thinking, and so many times people forget to actually identify what their specific creative thinking superpowers are. There's like 19 or 20 of them, and things that you wouldn't even necessarily think about or realize. But like, when you can connect the dots internally, that like, oh, these 4 things are like my strong suit. These, you know, 4 or 5 are the ones that are kind of middling for me. These are the ones that I do not excel at all. You can really start to identify those patterns in like the way that you work, the way that you interact with clients, and like even just your relationship to the creativity in and of itself, and better understand why you might be hired to do something when you can really like lock in and hone in on those traits that are special to you in that kind of greater universe of skill. It's
Yeah.
like way just past the talent. Because again, once you start doing this, the talent is assumed. It's a non-issue. It's all those other attributes that come along with it that end up being like the actual driving factor to building a very like long-term or sustainable career.
Yeah, it's the graphic designer part of graphic design.
Yeah.
Is that like, sure, you can have ideas, you can, do the job, but can you do everything else that comes with it? How good are you at like managing
Yeah.
personalities? How good are you at taking direction?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like learning other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes a lot of pressure itself off of the job once you start to kind of like the fog clears and you see I am good at these things, I'm not good at these things, I like working with these people, I don't like working with these people.
Yeah.
And knowing I can do these things really well. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like there are styles that I'm really good at that I don't like doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I know people will always come to me for them.
For sure.
So I know I have more of like a formulaic way of approaching
Yeah.
a design so I can turn it around on a tight timeline. It's an easy approval. I'm done for the day, and I know that like it didn't suck the life out of me. And when I feel like the life is sucked out of me with a creative project, it's because I spun my wheels
Mm-hmm.
trying to come up with something that has never been done before. And I will sit at my computer and I'm like, why can't I make something that's never been done before? And it's like, no, there's so much power in just doing the thing that works.
Yeah.
Because usually you don't have time to reinvent the wheel.
Oh,
That's like at the end of the day, you don't have time.
Yeah.
You don't have time to reinvent the wheel. So, you know.
A part of that is like it's all about knowing your role. Like
Yeah.
everyone walks onto the field as a football player, but there are wide receivers, there are linemen, there are linebackers, there's quarterbacks, there's running backs. You have a role. Like again, of course you're all football players. Like of course we're all designers, but some of us do this, some of us do that, some of us are asked to do this, and it all plays a role in the greater narrative to actually get an entire project into the end zone. And sometimes your role is what's actually going to make it happen. Sometimes your role is to actually like cause like the deflection point of like, oh, this is what we didn't want to see, now we have it confirmed. But even though your work was rejected, it played a vital role in actually moving the needle forward.
Steering.
It's like it is all part of the greater narrative, the greater strategy, and like to know your actual role in that greater like game is so important to keeping your mind like sharp.
Yeah. And well, tying back to what you were saying about like this hyper individualized approach to design and art in general, like people, even as like a freelancer, there's this like idea that we're all completely individual people when like no, we're working with a very large team of people. Like most of the time where we're working with management teams, we're working with internal creative teams, we have marketing teams, like there are just like artist aside, and like you play a role in that, and your job is to make sure things are moving in whatever direction. And it's really important to have people that just get things going, moving down the line. And when we think of it through like this hyper individualized of like, I am hired because I am this great art, it's like, no, you're that it's not how it's going to actually translate to the job itself. Where you're going to become part of a much bigger team, whether you're internal or a freelancer, and having like this really big capital A artist, I'm this big personality, I'm this brand. People are not going to like working with you. And it's like it doesn't lend itself well to a team. And I feel like we forget that none of like Rome wasn't built in a day. All of these things happen because there's a large group of people pushing the right buttons. And as designers, we want to make sure we're pushing the right buttons. So ultimately everybody makes money. And it's we forget about that like there's no individual person, it's
Yes.
all a bunch of other people,
Yeah.
and having that like humility in a sense, but like just it's not coming from one mind, it's so many moving
Yeah.
pieces, and it's kind of fun. Like it's nice to like work with other creative people, and like I love working with, when I was in house I loved working with other people because I felt like every single day I was like, you guys are so smart, you guys know so much stuff,
Yeah.
like you had it, like especially with like design, like there's so many ways that you can go about designing something, like there's so much beauty
Yeah.
in doing that,
Yeah.
and I wish other people like were as excited about like absorbing other people's knowledge and
Right.
like professional experience, and like that's what I love working with teams, because having all that pressure on yourself sucks.
Definitely.
It
Yeah.
sucks. It's so much stress. Talk about a way to fly way too close to the sun.
Yeah. For
Get
sure.
way too emotionally involved in a project.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why it's just good to know what you
Yeah.
offer as an individual to the greater team
What
under
do
the
you
umbrella of
offer?
the vision.
What do you think? Like
What do
what
I
is
offer?
your, yeah, what kind of cog are you?
Okay, so I am brought in in a couple different ways. I know in one sense I'm brought into jobs very early on when there's very little cohesive direction, and
Always fun.
there's an overarching theme of like, I think this is where we want it to go, but we're not sure. So my job is to be the spark starter in a sense, to connect a few dots, create builds that show a little variety of things that probably will work and probably absolutely will not work, but will confirm the next phase
Yeah.
of direction of going, oh, yes, this is what we want to do. So a lot of times I'm brought in for stuff like that. On the other flip of the coin, I'm brought in a lot of times at the very end when projects need gaps filled in, but there needs to be dots connected between what's already been established. And they say, okay, we like these things and all these moving parts from all these different designers, but we still need to fill the roles of A, B, C on this line, but we don't know how to do it and don't know what that looks like. And it might be actually pulling from other people's work that were part of the build or instilling my own stuff and helping to like make it feel cohesive in the final cook, you know? Uh, so that's definitely a thing. And then I think in a more general sense of if I'm brought in a more overarching role, I'm usually asked to do more of the capsule type stuff, where it's stuff that is meant to be very coordinating. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I've identified those three areas as like very specific things to me, and a lot of it usually always dealing with like the tightest time restraints because I'm the speed guy. You know, like
Yes.
I always call it like the like in the office. There's that episode where Michael has like the Rolodex card of Dwight, and it just says tall, comma beats. Like every designer has a Rolodex card in these huge companies, and you just have like a
Yours is
tag.
speed.
I'm the speed guy, and
Yes.
and I know that. I understand that. So many times I get the like, hey, we had this thing out of left field. You know,
Please tell me you're free.
can you do this? You know, for me. In 3 hours. And it's just like, all right, let's do it. Let's send it. So again, that goes back to knowing your role in the team, knowing and understanding why you're called upon, to do what you do. If I was looking at it through a lens of ego or through a lens of like artistry, it'd be like this is like the antithesis of creation. But I've learned that again, it's not about necessarily about my individual talents, but about all that other creative thinking skill that I've learned through experience and through my entire career that have shaped my ability to be an asset and have a role and have a seat at the table with a lot of very diverse builds because of it. I'm just a dot connector, really.
I
I'm
mean,
a
there's
big
power in
yeah I'm
that.
a big pattern recognition person. It's a lot of like I'm like the calculus person.
I agree 110%. Like I think, and that's like something that again comes with like a diverse either like range of experience or just many years
Yeah.
of figuring out this works, this didn't work, I like this, I don't like this,
Yeah.
and like just aligning your own buttons that you can consistently press
Yeah.
for a project.
For sure.
And like I don't know what mine is. I feel like people come to me for weird.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what I'm consistently brought in
Hmm.
for like uh initial development where they are maybe looking for, and it's something that's only happened maybe in the past like year or so,
Yeah.
where people have really started to come to me for like the avant-garde. Like they're looking for something handmade, they're looking for something that's more like artistry based, and it's never something that I thought
Definitely.
people would actually look for, because usually like people just don't care. They don't have budgets for it, they don't have time for it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm used to. Then every once in a while, like I get one of those projects where I get to do a ton of really crazy hand done stuff, and get really emotionally involved and attached to a project. And sometimes it works out really well, but sometimes it doesn't.
Sure.
And
A lot of that
I
too
feel
can
like,
end up speculative too, where it's like
yes,
building that narrative of, I mean, not spec work, but I mean speculative in how it's being presented to where like,
yes,
and we could really push the envelope with these types of examples and these types of people and this types of work, you know. I had roles like that before. It would be like I'm not roped into Gen Z avant-garde at all. Like my Rolodex has that scratched out. I am old man, right?
you don't
So
like doing deep fried. I call it's deep fried.
I
You
like
want
the deep
you want
fry
to deep
stuff.
fry, yeah.
I actually would love to deep fry stuff, but I think people are like, oh, he won't understand that. He's an old man. He doesn't get it. But
That's a mental thing. You've merely set that upon yourself.
yeah, but yeah, no. There were a couple years where yeah, some of my particular stylistic leanings lined up to that type of call, where like, hey, we need you to do the like over the top weird, what you do with like scribbles or collage or like really overly abundant maximalist stuff. Like
Yeah.
go to town because it's we're just
Really time consuming stuff.
yeah, like we're trying to present like this as an outlier type of thing of like we could really cook it if you want, and 90% of the times it's like, hey, no thanks, take
Yeah.
all of that away, please. But yeah, that it is always fun when you get the opportunity to like really go crazy like that.
Yeah. And it's a risk, and I feel like I've, even when I was at Live Nation, I feel like I was always kind of put into decks as the wild card,
Yeah, for sure.
where we would have very like consistent stuff. We knew we had like a general direction, and then it would kind of be like, what if we let Kelly make something crazy?
Yeah.
And then it's like, and sometimes it worked out. Like one of my crazy, completely out of left field things that I did not ever think would get approved, but did get approved, was this tie-dye, like neon green tie-dye shirt I did for Jonas Brothers. And it was like bootleg to the gods. Like it was so horrendously campy that like it, you would not think it was an official design, but it wasn't like amateur like Redbubble type of vibe, but it was more so like a weird thing you'd find in a parking lot type
Yeah,
of thing.
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
And it ended up being like a huge hit. And when we pitched it, it was like, this is probably too weird. This is probably too weird.
Yeah.
And then we ended up doing a couple versions of these extremely deep fried bootleg looking designs, and it was, I think it just hit right place, right time with
Oh
like
yeah.
when like online ceramics was really starting
Yeah.
to pop off, and I think it opened up a little bit of mental space for people to do maybe extremely strange stuff that looks kind of bad is good.
For sure. Yeah.
And that, once that happened, I was like, oh hell yeah.
Yeah. It's your time
Oh
to shine.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's my time to shine, because I love stuff that makes no sense.
Of course. Yeah.
And I'm happy that like people do come to me for that every once in a while. But I still do my my regular digular stuff, my bread and butter.
Oh, yeah.
I know my styles I'm really good at. I know the right things to push. I have more than enough assets. I have more than enough rejected designs that I can repurpose.
Goodness, can you?
If I can legally repurpose them, I'm billing again. If I repurpose something, I'm billing a second time.
Can you even imagine how big my reject pile is at this point?
Bro, I would say, if you had to guess, so you said what, between 8 and 1,200 designs last year?
I did right. It was like right in between 11 and 1,200. Yeah.
So is that total, or is that approved? Please say
total. Definitely no. Never.
Okay.
That would be insane.
Dear God, dude.
No, that would. I mean, I would have to be some sort of god for that to happen.
I mean, you're kind of already revered as that. It makes sense.
Like,
but
a good thing for people to remember is, like, if you're a professional baseball player, you're viewed as like the best hitter if you can get 30 to 40% of your hits.
Yeah.
Like, that's basic. Like, when I talk to most people that are working on a day-to-day basis in the field, that's where their approval rates fall, 30 to 40%. Yeah. But that's usually the ask when you're looked at all the different things you're asked to contribute. A lot of that is meant to fall through the cracks because it's a part.
You're steering a ship where you're keeping things out of. Okay, we didn't like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we're slowly working towards this.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's if you're shooting, 35% from the 3-point line.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Like, it's crazy, and like it sucks at first. And when I was like first starting out, like when I first started at Live Nation, I was like, "Whoo, this is brutal!" Yeah. Like, damn, you guys just constantly get shot down every single day, and you do so much work, and it never comes out, and people don't like it. And when, like, the first time I got an approval, and it was maybe like 3 or 4 months into me working there.
Yeah.
And it was like I was fighting desperately, and I was staying after work. I was like, what am I doing wrong? I'm not getting a single approval, like nothing. Like every single day doing design after design. I'd do like 3 or 4 a day, and that times 5 times, a number of work days in a month times multiple months, it starts to wear on you when you're not getting any approvals, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And, I was getting paid, $20 an hour, but like it really it wears on you. And when you get that first approval, it can be for like the most nonsensical reason, and it's not necessarily something you can learn from and then apply to the next thing. It's just like it's a constant like self-exploration of figuring out what works. And then when you're working for some of the companies that we work for, like that might just be one client, but then you have another client, and then you have another client, and they all like something completely different. And they all have their own individual set of legal parameters, and they all have their own individual management team where they are very particular about the way things work. And it's just there's so many moving parts that it's hard to figure out what consistently works,
for sure.
And it takes years of essentially getting rejected. And then eventually you start to figure it out, and it's miserable in the process, and it's still miserable now, but like you learn to separate, you compartmentalize, you know what to do, you're just a problem solver, solve the problem,
and then
by tomorrow morning.
We can really like zoom out and start to find the pattern recognition in the vocabulary used in different clients and different camps, and then assess the situation with what you've learned through previous build fails, so to say. You can get closer and closer to like, having those approval rates tick up more and more and more, where it becomes like 4D chess at that point. It's insane.
Yes. It feels like I have a couple clients where I've really started to dial in, like it's just I'm drop kicking an approval to them. It's like I've gone from like like that 30-40, which is like something because I was like, am I even getting that? And then I'm looking at my invoicing when I invoice for my approval, I'm like, oh, I'm getting way more approvals than I thought.
Yeah.
Because like I'm when you're deep in the world of like NDA stuff, you're not thinking about like, can I add this to my portfolio? So then you're thinking about, oh, this got approved, this got approved.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of like lost in the sauce of like, is anything getting approved?
Yeah.
And like, now that I'm looking at like some of the ones that I've consistently worked with, I know
Yeah.
the exact things, and especially if I've built out kind of like an archive of stuff that I haven't even submitted to them, that I've just kind of like built along the way, where I've made these little pieces for certain clients.
Yeah.
I can then just go here.
Exactly.
And then they're like, oh my God.
And that doesn't matter.
This is the best thing.
And that doesn't matter if it's like the largest client in the world or the smallest client in the world.
Yeah.
Being able to like actually find that footing and find that through line that you can then like always step out in stride. It's the greatest feeling ever. Like to be able to make that type of like mental connection, and it's
especially
like,
if you can do it in a short window.
Yeah.
Oh, I love blowing through a project and I'm happy with how it looks, and I'm like, I know they're gonna approve this. I spent an hour on it, and I'm gonna make like like $600. Whew, no better feeling than that. Like it's, and most of the time it's not that, but when you have those days, you're like, thank God.
Sure. Yeah,
Thank
it's
God.
great. When it hits, it hits.
Yes, definitely. I think before we wrap up, I want you to give your spiel to people about you not using Adobe.
Yeah.
And I think, because I've referenced you a couple times on Kelly, that I know someone who has never opened Adobe,
It's
who
me.
does not use Adobe, who I'll use you as an example. I'm like, there are very successful people out there who have never used Photoshop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's crazy to believe, but they have found great amount of success. And I'm just coping with I'm like, no, I know my systems. I know how to do my things. And
Right.
I can't even learn Blender. How am I gonna learn a new program?
Right, yeah. So yeah, 14 years now, and I've never once opened an Adobe program. I've never once had
Not even like a cracked version.
No, I've never had an Adobe program even on one of my computers. I've never had any use for it. I've never had any
You're
need.
free.
I'm free.
Your shackles are gone.
Uh,
You're in the field.
It's not, a program is just a program, it's just a place.
It's just a tool.
Yeah, it's just a tool that you're going to be able to open and do what you do. So at the end of the day, the semantics that are important are just like, can other people open it? And
Yes.
yeah, so like with my thing, from day one, I have used the open source, completely free program, paint.net, which is bottom of the barrel when it comes, like, it's like design blasphemy.
The fact that like you do all of this in Paint.net kills me. Like that's like saying like, yeah, I do it all in like Microsoft Paint, and I'm like, I've seen some crazy stuff come out of Microsoft Paint. Like the brain power required to achieve some of the stuff that you do in Paint.net, because I know Paint.net, and it's like it's poetic
So okay,
to be able to do what you do.
Well, okay, so Kelly, this is my hard sell to you too, because
Please,
I know
sell
you
me.
want to get away from Adobe,
I do.
and there is a path. There is definitely, like, anyone that wants.
I just hate change.
If
I
anyone
struggle.
that wants the path, there is the path. But there are definitely limitations, and there are definitely things that can never like be up to par with something like Adobe. And it's like, if you're okay with those sorts of things, you can always find a workaround. Oh, like 100%. So I've heard you talk. I as a kelliot listener, I've heard you talk about your theories of like how about we split Adobe, and you give us the program, and maybe like the users can just sort of like tinker around and continue to update it and make
We get it open source,
Kel,
and you guys keep the evil version.
that's paint.net. That's literally, you're describing paint.net. So paint.net, God bless them.
I didn't know Paint.net was open source.
100% open source and 100% user driven. So the program of paint.net was made by a bunch of boomers that worked in the creative fields, maybe through like the late 80s, through like the 90s. And you can tell that there was early versions of Photoshop or Corel Draw or whatever that they were very comfortable with, that they wanted to see somewhat sustained, into the, like, maybe as they left their creative fields, retired, and still wanted to have things to tinker around with. They're like, this is something that's very familiar to a workflow that we knew on more rudimentary design programs. So Paint.net is sort of built around this very, very rudimentary ecosystem, very reminiscent of like prehistoric design programs. And with the type of design that I do, I view that as an asset because the program itself is completely bare bones. It's almost like hilariously bare bones. But the big kicker is that since it's open source and completely user driven, the entire premise and evolution of the program is based on plugins built by the community. So there is literally, I'm not even joking, all of this is done through an Internet 1.0 style forum, like a literal forum where you download the plugins from people. And the crazy thing is, once you start loading this program up with all of the free plugins, it becomes something that like you can one for one do most things within Photoshop. Like someone wrote a script to be able to save your layered files as PSDs to hand them off. Like they open just fine in Photoshop.
That's my excuse, like, and I know there's a solution to my excuse.
Yeah, so it's like
that. Yeah, we can
like,
translate the file.
Like I have handed off thousands upon thousands of layered PSD files to the largest companies in the world, and it's been fine every time. There's never been someone that's come back and been like, this doesn't work. It works every time. So I think the really cool thing is like you can go through all these plugins, you can install what you want and leave the rest. So like the program is exactly what you personally need it to be, nothing more, nothing less. It never crashes. It works because there's nothing.
The program hasn't met me yet. I'm capable of crashing the most immaculate programs.
There's nothing to bog it down.
The strongest computers.
That's the thing. It doesn't get bogged down. Like I look at these Photoshop files and like the systems that people are using, and like the size of these files is offensive. Of course it's crashing computers. Like there's so much behind it. It's ridiculous. But like since this is so much more bare bones, everything is more streamlined, so the files don't have the same sort of like wear and tear on your machine. So like it actually makes your machine last longer. It doesn't like it keeps things moving at a faster pace throughout the day, even because nothing is like being lagged down at all, and nothing's stalling out, nothing's glitching, nothing is disappearing, and oops, it crashed. Now I got to start over. Like literally, I think I've had that happen once or twice, and it was due to like a script error inside of a plugin that ended up crashing the program. It wasn't even the program's fault. It was something that was quickly identified and remedied. So like because of that, I apply that even to just like what I do as a designer, the styles that I do. Like I am a t-shirt designer. I am doing things that do not require rocket science. I do not need programs that have the most illustrious, cutting edge, back end to do that in, So
you're like, it's not even going to translate to print. Why am I worrying about all this fancy stuff? Like it's not.
Yeah. So
you can't screen print that. So what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like programs, like all these Adobe programs are so bogged down with every bell and whistle and every setting possible, and the vast majority of people don't need most of that stuff. So if you get a program that doesn't have any of it, it's going to run a lot smoother. So I mean, that's always.
You're saying you don't want an AI toolbar to constantly follow you around, even though you've turned the function off.
Yeah.
It's like, oh hey. Oh.
There you go.
Hey, I know you just closed me, but I just wanted to see if you wanted to try out a new beta feature that we're like.
For all those people, there is no AI anything in the program. There is no metadata in the program. There is nothing but your design work. Like that's it. It's kind of poetic in and of itself. I don't know.
It's powerful.
I love it.
Do you use have you ever tried like Affinity or anything? Or are you interested in any of those other?
No, but it's the same thing, I will go to bat for anyone that tries to find a solution through Affinity, GIMP, I think Krita is one of them. Like,
Greta, yeah, she's still kicking.
there's so many, but it's like it goes back to my music days where like you can pick up $100 guitar and make it sound incredible if you know what you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
it's no different with design programs. Like, I have talked to so many students through like my like creative talks or whatever, where like people have said like when they go to school, like one of the requirements for like the graphic design career is like they're like to be able to like do the classes, you have to like buy a MacBook and buy an Adobe subscription. And I'm like, what? You're just like, they're just making you a consumer for a very specific path, and it's like there are other paths, and why isn't that even considered? Like, I understand that there are industry standards, but like if I'm in the industry, not working with an industry standard, handing out files that work as an industry standard, what's the problem? Like, anyone can do it, you know?
Yeah. It's tough.
I'm not some sort of exception to the rule. I just dug into not using those programs.
You're just that stubborn. I mean,
I'm just
there's
that
power in that.
stubborn, right? And then
Yeah.
the same with like the vector side of things. Inkscape is the equivalent for Illustrator, the free open source that, again, you can do most everything you need to do on Inkscape that you would need to do in Illustrator without all the bells and whistles, without something that's going to crash on you all the time, and without being involved in any sort of subscription fee. Like Paint.net, 100% free for life. Inkscape, 100% free for life. Like, there are solutions for everyone out there, you know? It's not unobtainable.
It's really like powerful to find the amount of success. I feel like I want to be able to, like, and it's something that I wanted to do more in my down season this year.
Yeah.
But unfortunately that didn't happen. But it's something that like I'm actively I like it's on the top of my to-do list, and people have raked me over the coals for still using Adobe, and I'm aware. And in the meantime, I'm gonna continue shaking my fist, and yeah, they have me blocked on Twitter. I don't think I haven't given a good fight here.
For sure.
You know, it's fine. But I'm like, in the meantime, I'm gonna keep complaining about everything because, like, I had likened Adobe to like a shitty boyfriend, where you're like, no, I can fix him.
Right.
Please just give me a chance. Just put me in the room at Adobe. I can fix them. And it's like in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's never gonna happen, Kelly. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go. It's not gonna happen. And it's just because like I'm a creature of habit.
For sure.
But I'm also someone who like hates everyone. I hate every company. And so I'm up against that.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, all of these people are evil, and they're ruining, you know, something that like, I thought we were doing this because we liked graphic design. Why did you guys, I think there was a point in time when maybe Adobe wasn't going to become Adobe TM. Like, I feel like there was a point in time where there is this, oh, we're doing something interesting. It's, you know, we're naming this company after the creek that's in my backyard. That's interesting. We're early in software development. And then it's like, why are we doing Adobe Remix? What happened? Like, we strayed so far from God. the old version. Like, why did we have to do this? And I feel like that's the power of, like, when there isn't this either, like, private ownership or this, like, shareholder ownership, where Adobe is technically, you know, still privately owned, but at the same time, it still has shareholders. And all they care about is line going up.
Yeah.
Line keep going up. No further questions. And that's the power of like things being open source, is that there is like that communal accountability of like, we're just doing this because we like doing this. And I feel like that's more of, if you are a creative person in any capacity, that's why you do what you do, because you're like, well, I just like doing this. It's not like, nobody goes into graphic design for money. We wouldn't be doing this if we were like, oh, I want a big house, I want a bajillion dollars, I want to drive a nice car. I mean, there are graphic designers who have somehow managed to make a lot of money doing graphic design, and I don't know how. If anyone knows, let me shoot me a DM. If anyone knows how to hack the system and get a ton of money, let me know. You can confirm that you don't go into, especially merchandise design, because you want to make a lot of money. It's not.
I mean, there's money to be made.
True.
There is,
but
always
it's not
money to
like
be
this. I don't know. I think it's also maybe like the content sphere where people think graphic designers are making a ton of money, and it's like, no, it's because they're making the majority of their money off of content, and that's where the money is. It is in content.
Yeah.
You want to talk about big bucks? Content is where you go. It
For
is
sure.
not in freelance graphic design.
I mean, yeah, the majority of, I mean, it's something that's compounded over time, and when you're doing an endeavor that's so based around your actual individual skill and output, it really just becomes a matter of time calculation. How fast can you go to make more money? And that's just how hard are you willing to push yourself at that regard.
Absolutely.
So that if you want to, technically you can, but most people don't want to or can't. It's it's a crazy. If that's your only pursuit, that would be insane. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I had posted on my story once, and I'll tell you who replied once we finish recording, because I know you know who this is. But I had posted on my story once where I was like, hey, maybe we should get paid more sometimes. God forbid. And it was like an Illustrator mutual of mine who had posted, like the amount of hours that they had spent on something and how much money they ended up getting paid. And, a lot of times it ends up shaking down to be, like less than $25 an hour, but you're self-employed. That's accounting for expenses and taxes. Like, you're making minimum wage in some states. So like it's, like maybe we should get paid more money. And I had like reposted that, and then this freelancer replied, and they were just like, well, you see, this is where you need to be taking time into consideration and just working faster. And I'm like, are you stupid? Like, oh, my bad. I didn't know it was that easy. I just should be working faster. That's so crazy. I'll just hit the buttons faster next time, and then that'll make it more efficient and worth my time. It's like, yeah, sure, working faster does benefit you, but when you're illustrating, it's not like you can just, I'll just move my hand faster. It's not.
I couldn't imagine.
It's not that simple.
Like, I would never want to have the plight of the illustrator. Like, that would be insane. Like, I don't know how illustrators do it. I tip my hat to them every day, because it's like,
I hate illustrating. Whenever I get an illustration project in my inbox, I'm like,
in a world that is going faster and faster every single day, like, how does the illustrator keep up? It's
and you just have to learn to draw fast. And I like drawing. I hate illustrating. Like, it's as soon as it comes time for me to apply the drawing skill, I put so much pressure. I feel like I don't have a refined illustration style, so I feel like that comes across in the work where I can only do stuff that looks kind of bootleg. Because it's because I'm not good at it. It's not a stylistic choice that it looks kind of off. It's just I just can't do it, and I've been commissioned to do it.
For sure.
So I'm in this kind of weird spot. But I shout out to all the illustrators out there in the world. You
the real superhero,
stronger than the Marines. Truly, I love Procreate. #1 Procreate fan. I finally got around to learning Procreate.
Nice.
So that was my first Adobe kick I did.
That's awesome.
Was learning Procreate, and way better than Adobe Fresco.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't even know what that is. I've never even heard of that.
It's because it sucks. It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's like it's essentially like a digital pad of paper, and then you go here.
Nice.
And that's on the iPad. And that's it. And I was like, no, it's bare bones. It's very direct. You can only do a couple things, but that's all you need.
Wow.
And then I opened Procreate, and I'm like, wow. there's so many more features,
That's
and
awesome.
it's almost like it's designed more
That's what I'm talking about. Like,
for
yeah.
illustrating.
I mean, people have been fed up with Adobe for so long that there's a lot of people that pay attention to that and say, oh, I can make a program that runs in a way that I think makes more sense for a certain type of designer, a certain type of illustrator, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
So you're just seeing more and more opportunity there to actually branch out. If, I don't know why people are so scared and so timid to like try something different, but like the options are definitely out there, and like I'm always personally down to like help people make that switch if they ever want to like talk things through. Like it's always like a good thing to see people step away from larger entities like that in general, and it even goes just beyond like the design programs, but actually like do invoicing through programs that aren't owned by large entities. Create your documents in programs that aren't attached to large entities. Like there's open source versions of all of this stuff, like there's OnlyOffice that you can download. There's like PDF Gear. There's like, I mean, Zoho invoice. It's like there's all these different programs and places where it's like there are other options. And I don't know if that's just like the punk kid in me that came from being screamed in my face for all my formative years that there is another path forward, that I just naturally am inclined to say like, why don't we look elsewhere? But it's yours for the taking, and most of it is free, and most of it runs better than like the options that you have thrown in your face over and over again all day, every day. And I encourage everyone to like dig into those types of things. As much as they possibly can. I even have a whole section on my website. It's just if you go to resources, you can click on all of them and download them. Like
That's where I've pulled stuff from before to send people, because like I feel like when people talk about just like the ethics of our industry and kind of like their qualms about doing what we do, and like I think it's a really good example of like a way that you can continue to exist in the space and still try to do something that is not immediately bending over and just using Adobe for every piece of what we do. And I think it's a very radical act of, existing in an industry that does not give a shit about you and how you make stuff.
Yeah.
So if that's something that you can, do, I think you should do it. And it's something I genuinely I want to, because every single day of my life I run into problems. And it's between my computer being full, and I think I have theories that Adobe personally throttles me and prevents me from succeeding.
Some sort of mainframe blacklist,
Yes, they have me it's where I start to sound like
there we go.
My tinfoil hat starts to take its shape, and
no,
I'm like, no,
this.
you see, no, Adobe is doing this to me. They're doing it to me. And they found my IP address. They're lasering me from space, making sure I continuously open Photoshop 2024 and 2025, and then I can't bounce. But it's like they hate me. They want me to fail.
Anyone
and then I give them $70 every month.
It's $70 a month
for the whole suite.
Wait, okay. So people are paying $70 a month for the privilege to use Adobe. And you can't even download it anymore, right? Like it's not even yours.
No. So, no, you'll never own it.
Oh my god.
See, this is so beautiful to talk to someone who doesn't.
Folks, Kelliot Nation, wake up. What?
I told you, Adobe is a bad boyfriend, and we're all.
It's
I know he's got
$70
his
a month. That's insane.
But he's gonna figure it out, guys. I promise, please.
But now tariffs are gonna make it go up another 35%, so it's gonna be $100.
How? We don't know. Is it a digital program? Yeah.
Yeah. They'll figure out a way. Yeah.
They'll figure out a way to make line go up somehow.
Oh my god. Wow.
Yeah, it's
$70 a month.
I think they still have the $9.99 for Photoshop. Only if you just want Photoshop, $9.99 a month.
Wow.
But because I use like 7 programs, I have to. It just makes sense for me to have the whole suite, but so I have to find alternatives for all of them. And one thing I'm really interested in switching is for video editing, because Premiere, count your days. count your days. They're numbered. They're in single digits. And so it's I'm at my breaking point, and as soon as my schedule lightens up just a little bit, it's on my list.
Of course, I mean, the learning curve with stuff is it's a time suck, that's for sure. But
have you used WOMP?
No, I don't really do much 3D stuff. I'm familiar with it, but I don't really have much personal need for it. But they're like they do free stuff, right?
Yeah. Their program's free. I think they have a premium version. Yeah. But the owner's really cool. Yeah. And it's a very like earnest. We're trying to like make, a Blender that is a lot more accessible to people, because Blender is just so intimidating.
That's great.
Have you ever
No.
ventured into Blender?
No. No one has hit me up for 3D anything. Like,
well, it has its uses for like asset creation. Like I've had to learn, this is extreme cope, the 3D tools in Illustrator, and they have helped me a couple of times when I've needed something. Like, because I can construct an object fairly easily. Yeah. As long as it's very rudimentary. Mm-hmm. It's nothing. If it's going to just be printed in a halftone, I gotcha. But nothing crazy looking. Yeah. But it's not as it's not a good 3D approach, essentially, and so that's why Adobe's tried to make their own web-based 3D program. What are they calling it? Neo?
Wow.
I think. But WOMP is like a significantly better web-based 3D program. And they just introduced their 3D printing aspect of it. And it's just like, they're like an independent company, and they seem to just really, they're big anti-Adobe people.
Yeah, that's cool.
Trying to do something new.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's out there for the taking. People are trying to present alternatives to the world, and they have been for a very long time, and people just keep feeling like, oh, there's nothing.
We're under the grip of the bad boyfriend.
Yeah, right? Everyone's got the boot on their own head.
Yeah. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to our nonsensical conversation about the wonderful, crazy, bizarre industry that we occupy. That, like, the merchandise industry is about this big.
Oh yeah.
There are not that many of us. So it's always nice to talk to people who get the very unique circumstances that we are in, and how it's really not for everyone.
Absolutely.
So, Brian, where can people find you? You are someone who has been very open about everything, and I have sent people your way when they have questions, concerns about whatever, that you're a really valuable resource. So where can people find you, and what can they contact you about?
For sure,
and when?
My website is just fleshandbonedesign.com. I actually just launched a new website for the first time in years, like a couple weeks ago.
What do you use for web host?
Cargo.
Cargo, you're a cargo guy. Nice.
Well, so for years I was doing Wix, and then they're like super Israel people.
They email me like crazy, and I always have to send them the meanest email back. And I'm like, stop. I have told you guys stop for years.
Right. So that was my bad boyfriend moment, where like way back in, like, I don't know, I got some crazy deal in like the mid 2010s for web hosting through them. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll just like build a website through them. It was even like before Squarespace really started taking off. So I just always stuck with it. But it served me just fine for years. But as time has gone on, it's just become one of those things that, like, as a web builder, kind of like Squarespace too, it just is kind of bloated. And when you get in there to try to do things, like you'll try to do the most rudimentary, elementary things, and then you like render it, save it, and then like the line is off by 10 pixels, and it's like what's going on? Like, why is this so unintuitive? So I was like, screw it, I need to like get off of this platform. Dug in, I found that like Cargo was releasing their like 3.0 web builder, so I wanted to give it a try. And as soon as I got in there, like with some of their, whether it's like the blank stuff or the template stuff, night and day difference. Like Cargo is like god tier when it comes to building your own website, because I am not a web designer in any way, shape, or form. I don't understand coding, and the guardrails that Cargo has up allows you to really like do what you need to do, and you're going to be really hard pressed to have anything get, have the 10 pixel mix up, and just fill you with a lot of like wasted time and headache and frustration with building out anything of any size. Because like what I wanted to do with this most recent build was do like a huge archival index where I have like over 1,000 pieces on the website now. It's enormous.
You could not do that on Squarespace.
So I wanted to do this very like, I needed something that could have a large amount of presentation, but with a very tight and concise and like non-confusing layout. And like Cargo just checked all the boxes. I mean, I'm not a sponsored ad for them, but like, man, I can't say enough good things about my experience building with them, and like I just want to send everyone there. It's incredible.
I've been interested in switching because my friend Julia uses Cargo for her website, and she really likes it. And I've heard a lot of good things because, like, I like Squarespace, but I have consistently run into issues with Squarespace, especially if you want a really freaky deaky weird like website. Like it's very templative, so like if you like that and you happen to find a template that works for you, that's great. But if you want to do anything weird, things, you run into the 10 pixel issue very quickly, where I'm like, why is it working in this one exact, but the second my window gets any bigger or any smaller, Squarespace is like, I can't do that, actually.
Like, whoa, hey, what are we talking about here?
And I'm like, just open the code. Let me handle it. Because, like, there's something, you have one container going something, let me do it. Let me do it.
I think
so that's another reason why I used to use Squarespace, because
Cargo.
you could code stuff into it. But now they definitely make it a little harder to do that. So it's something that I've thought about.
Like
switching.
The aspect to apply some coding to it is very, very simple, and like very, very straightforward. Where like the code can so simply be applied page by page in a format that is designed in a way that's so user friendly that like I don't know, you just can't really mess it up. Like I even did that a little bit. Again, someone that doesn't know anything about encoding, I like embedded my favorite Tetris game onto as part of my website, because I mean that's a whole other thing that we didn't even talk about. Like, but like I'm like big Tetris nerd, and it like applying to like building your careers in a certain way. I don't know, it's like a whole thing, but
it's poetic. Very metaphorical.
But just being able to just get in there very easily to like very cleanly embed something. It was like, it was a non-issue and like didn't mess up anything else in the build. And it's like, this is great. I love it. Cargo rules.
I had to go through hell to get a SoundCloud link to autoplay on my my FAQ page. I could get it to load. That's wild. And it would still show up even though I didn't want it to show up, and I was trying to make it like 1 pixel by 1 pixel, just so it could just tuck in somewhere. Dang. But then it wouldn't autoplay, and I was like,
of course.
Why can't I just, like the old days, why can't I just make a song autoplay when you go on this website? Like, so.
But so you can find me, fleshandbonedesign.com is the website if you actually want to like look at the work or like, hit me up via email. And then I'm basically just on Instagram. It's just under Flesh and Bone Design. I tell everyone all the time, like, any creative, like, if you ever have questions, if you ever need, some kind of second opinion, or, just someone who's been around the block that might be able to offer a bit of insight. There have been so many times over the span of my entire career where I would run into roadblocks or frustrations and just say, if I had like 5 minutes of someone's time that's been here
Yeah.
before,
I've come to you
yeah,
for help.
exactly, yeah. And it's like my door is always open in that sense. I have plenty of busy days where I might not be able to respond right away, but I try to get to everyone as quickly as I can. And it's just the reminder that there's more than enough to go around. We aren't necessarily a threat to one another. Like, this is how we build community, even through digital senses, that like we're all meant to be there for one another. And especially as
Yeah.
I like continue
It's the
to
team
age and
aspect.
yeah, become a bit of an elder in this world, I want to continue to like spread that ethos and let anything that I might have learned from my own stupidity and my own mistakes, I'd much rather pass that on to someone else so they don't have to deal with or
Yeah.
suffer with the things I did, because there's no place for that boomer mentality of like, well, I suffered, so you will too. Figure it out. Like, no, like, here, we figured it out. Like, don't suffer.
Literally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to talk with everyone, because I think it's just so valuable to hear from other industry people who have a really good amount of experience under their belt and actually know what they're talking about, and using people like you as an example of, this is a good mentor, this is a good reference of people who not only know the job but like understand the nuances that come with like being a working creative person and how difficult that can be, and finding kind of like where you land in the industry is really difficult. But that's where a lot of people get stuck. That's where I was stuck for a long time.
Definitely.
So
And I
there's value
appreciate
in
you saying that. It means a lot. Yeah, and I guess that's something too, just to remind people, like, if anyone wants to have more elongated, long form conversations at the end of every single year, I do like an open sign up thing where I have like a scheduling thing, and I do like webcam or phone meetings with people for like an hour, 2 hours, and like we can talk shop about anything you want creatively, whether it's serious or lighthearted, and like always down to do that. So like if you get connected on the socials, you'll always be able to see that. It's always 100% free. It's not like a gate kept price thing. It's just hanging out and just vibing. So
That's beautiful. That's very, very valuable insight to have that available to people. So guys, please go follow Brian. Really great resource, truly. Someone who has helped me a lot, someone I have commissioned multiple times, and I'm sure I will commission you in the near future, because I do have some stuff coming down the pipe that I need to email you about.
let's get to work.
So
I'll be your little speed boy.
please. Okay, the last things that I will ask you is, I need a song of the week that you are enjoying, that you feel, for whatever reason, whether it's a song that you've listened to a bunch this week or you are just resonating with. And then I will also need your font of the week.
Of course.
Of any variety.
Yes.
You can have a second to think about that.
Oh no! I thought about these. I'm a listener. I came prepared. See, I'm a rare. I'm a Spotify listener, so
Same.
I have dropped off on.
Oh, because you don't have Apple. Or you don't use Apple. So
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
sense.
that's it. Yeah, no, well, I go on my little walks every day, and when it's Monday, I'm like, oh, I got to put the Kel podcast on to see what health ailment has come up this week. So
This week, autism.
right. So yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any like the
Beautiful.
recent video ones because I don't want to listen to that, because I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I gotta check those
That's
out.
fair.
But wait, where were we going with this? I already lost the thread.
Song of the week.
Oh, the song of the week. Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and I was like, oh, I should like have a song like for Kel and for Elliot based off of like where y'all are at. So like you're Portland, and I was like, well, I gotta do a shout out to like one of my favorite Portland bands of all time,
Okay.
which
We have
is a band called Typhoon. They've
Okay.
been at it since like 2005. And they the song that I would choose from them is called Mind of God. It's from their an EP they put out in 2022 that was like, it was kind of this whole like concept album. I don't know, it's like just kind of chill indie
Cool
stuff.
art.
Yeah, they came up in like Christian adjacent indie of like the millennial kind that I came up in, and have just sort of kept continuing to progress into like really, really cool stuff as they like, kind of dealt with their own like ex-evangelical rantings like I did. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's just really good, like really good lyrics.
They make some of the best music.
Yeah, it's
People
fantastic.
with religious trauma.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. So that's a great one. And like for Elliot, my favorite Australian artist of all time, I had to go with The Middle East is the band.
Ooh,
And the
okay.
song is Deep Water, and it's one of my all-time favorites. It's like that album I think is from 2011, and they were a band that like they they were on
I
the
like their song Blood.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
like, oh my
for
God.
sure, yeah. So
That
that
song was everywhere.
right, it was that was one of those bands that like they came up in like the millennial hey ho folk era,
Yes.
but they were on the good side of it, not the bad side of it. I think a lot of young people establish all of it as a single facet, but there was a very, very good side of that type of music and a
Yes.
very, very
Well, it was
cringy
just
side of
like
that music.
folk.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, and there's the stomp clap.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then there's like other actual like folk
Yeah, exactly.
artists.
But that song, Deep Water, oh, I put that song on all the time. It's a beautiful song. And the crazy thing with them,
It's
they broke
long.
up. They hadn't done anything in a very long time. And that big country guy, Zach Bryan, was that his name?
Zach Bryan.
He,
I confuse him with, wait, there's a Bryant?
I think it's Brian, without a T.
Brian.
Yeah,
He's like, I'm not like other country boys.
yeah,
He's like a little like folk
yeah, yeah.
India-ish.
He had his big like sold out arena tour last year and just got the Middle East to get back together and open the tour.
I didn't know that.
And I like at the time I didn't know
Zach
I had never
Bryan?
heard of Zach Bryan, and all of a sudden I just saw the Middle East was back together and tour. Like, what are you talking about? But then I couldn't get a ticket because I was like, who is this guy? What is going on? Turns out he's like the biggest.
Again, I'm obsessed with how unplugged you are. Like it's truly
I'm
admirable.
so clueless. I feel like a boomer when it comes to the music stuff, but it's just because I've always really gone to like the indie stuff, the punk stuff. Like my favorite thing that I listen to is just like slowcore stuff. So I'm like way down the hole of like just music no one wants to listen to at all.
I mean, we all have our vices
Right.
of extremely strange music that we
Yeah.
like.
So there's my Portland and my Australia. I don't
That's
think
beautiful.
because Elliot's in Sydney, but I think they're in Townsville up in Queensland. So it's not doesn't translate quite one for one. But as an ignorant American, I just get to say Australia as opposed to the specific cities.
Again, I very recently found out that Australia has states.
Oh, okay, nice.
So, I was probably like a teenager when I found out. Actually, just other countries in general had states because I went to public school
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah, and then my font for the week would be one of my tried and trues, which is Anzeigen Grotesque.
How do you spell that?
It's Anzeigen. It was developed as like an internal use version of New Aurora back in the day.
Yeah.
But it's
It almost gives like a nicer version of like Impact.
yes, exactly. It's something that you can stretch tall or wide, and it hits. And it's got there's nothing I hate more than a curvy R, whatever the leg is called. I hate a curvy R. And
I know.
this
Yeah.
font, everything is just boom straight, no nonsense.
What is that technically called? I'm looking at my chart.
I don't know. This is like again design
What are you?
blasphemy.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But yeah, so I use that all the time. Love it. It comes in as a heavy hitter so often, whether as a display or as more.
Is it a variable
body
font?
type. No.
But you can just do whatever you want to
Oh yeah.
it. That's beautiful.
I will stretch that to kingdom come, and it works.
And you know what? I'm a big fan.
Me.
I'm a big
I know
fan.
you're
That was
a
my
big
first
fan.
major controversy. That was bad.
I
was
I love stretching.
People were calling me a eugenicist
It's great.
for stretching time.
I mean, I don't know. I don't like. I don't care. Not coming from.
It's just,
Yeah.
guys. It's just a font.
Yep.
It's just a font. It's not that serious.
When you don't have the disciplined background, you're like, yeah, let's just send it. Like, who cares?
Literally, who cares? It's, guys,
Yeah,
we're not doctors. It's fine.
it's great. Yeah, can't recommend it enough.
Amazing. Beautiful. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, Elliot will be back in a couple weeks, but I have another guest booked for you next week that I know you also know. So, thanks so much for listening, guys.
Woo! Thank
Be
you
sure
so
to
much.
subscribe if you haven't already. Go follow Brian.
Thank you for having me.
Rate us
Yeah.
on the place where you rate podcasts. Preferably 5 stars. I'll kill myself. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.